Chords and Coffee, and today we are looking once again in our faithful Christmas compendium companion. That's all the C alliteration I could come up with there. This is the Real Christmas Book by Hal Leonard. Everyone take a look at the song, I'll Be Home for Christmas. In my book, it's on page 96, maybe on page 97 in your book, but it's a beautiful tune. And you know what? A lot of people forego the beginning of this song. There's a little prelude, so we'll take a look at that. If you want a reference to that prelude, I think the Carpenters do it. Maybe Johnny Mathis does it. But for the most part, Frank and Dean and a lot of the cats that when you think of, even Ben Crosby, I think they just get right into the meat and potatoes of the song. And why not? It's a beautiful tune. There's some great chord changes in there. This actually comes to me via my buddy Kyle Jennings, giving old Kyle Jennings a shout out up there in Richland, Michigan. Kyle texted me the other day and he said, man, what's that second chord? And I'll be home for Christmas. And there's a little bit of shenanigans here, and I'll show you with the melody. I think what we ought to do is let's start with the prelude, and I'm going to blow through that pretty quick because, again, the return on investment for that is not as great as the rest of the song because you just don't normally hear this much, but it's worth listening to. So the chords are actually pretty easy in the beginning. You've got this F major 7, I'm dreaming tonight of a place I love. There's so many people that sing it better than I do, right? And so all this is F major 7, index finger on the 8th fret from A to high E, straight across, boom, human capo. Sounds like a good dish you get at Who Hot. Anyway, index finger across the 8th fret from A to high E, then ring finger is going to be on the 10th fret of the D, middle finger is going to be on the 9th fret of the G, and then pinky is going to be on the 10th fret of the B. Remember that, because we're going to do it again down here later. And then E minor 7, good old Doobie Brothers E minor 7. Right? Index finger across the 7th fret from A to high E. Middle finger is going to be on the 8th fret of the B. Ring finger is going to be on the 9th fret of the D. Remember that, because we're going to do it again. How soon? Well, how about right now? Scoot it down to D minor 7, whole step down. Same sheboing, it's just going to start on the 5th fret. So index, 5th fret, A to high E, all the way across. Middle finger is going to be on the B string of the 6th fret. And then, did I say 5th fret with index finger? 5th fret with index finger. Middle finger is going to be on the 6th fret of the B, and then ring finger is going to be on the 7th fret of the D. And then to good old A minor 7. Kind of a deceptive cadence right there. And you're going to have index finger on the 5th fret from the low E all the way to the high E, and then ring finger is going to be on the A string of the 7th fret, and then to the D minor 7 on the 5th fret right there again. And then, this is really interesting, you're going to have the D flat 9 that resolves to the C major 7. So what makes that D flat work to our ear is that the third of that D flat is an F, which we're substituting this for a minor 4, and then you've got an E flat. So it's almost like a substitution for like an F minor 7. Actually, all this is just a tritone substitution for G7, the 5. So that's why that works. If you want to unpack that, we can. And it slides really nice into that C. So how do I make that? I'm going to have my middle finger on the 4th fret of the A. Index finger is going to be on the 3rd fret of the D. And then ring fingers laying across the G, the B, and the high E. And then you could slide to the C major 7. I kind of want to slide to the C6-9, and I'm pretty sure I made I've got that just sounds good to me. Reminds me whatever the resolution to the opening credits song of Monsters, Inc. by Disney Pixar. There's like a moment where it has that kind of vibe to it. And it's in a lot of jazz stuff like that. But C major 7, here's another way to do that. You can go, that's kind of interesting too. That would be middle finger on the 3rd fret of the A, index on the 2nd fret of the D, ring on the 4th fret of the G, and then pinky on the 5th fret of the B. And that sets you up beautifully for this C6. And this is going to be, leave your ring or your middle where it's at on the 3rd fret of the A. Index is going to cover the D and the G of the 2nd fret, D and G, and then pinky is going to be on the 5th fret of the B and the high E. So you're doing like 2 octaves. nice, right? And we start all over again. Back up here to F major 7, E minor 7, D minor 7, A minor 7. And then this chart calls for D7. I like a little D9 right there. I think that just sounds nicer. That's going to be middle finger on the A string of the 5th fret, index finger is going on the 4th fret of the D, and then ring is going to lay on the G, the B, and the high E. Here it is, D7 too, if you want that. Index finger straight across, bada bing, and then that's going to be on the 5th fret, and then your ring finger is going to be on the 7th fret of the D, open G via human capo, and then pinky is going to be on the 7th fret of the B, and then to G7. G7 is just going to be index finger straight across the 3rd fret from E to E, and then you're going to have your ring finger on the 5th fret of the A, and then you're going to have your middle finger on the 4th fret of the G. That's the prelude. Now it's time for the meat and potatoes. Okay, so you've got this, which is interesting about this tune. I want to say this first. So the melody, I'll be home. What's interesting about that is the chord that it calls for is a C6. The melody starts on a C. No problem there. B. And that's, yeah, let me double check that. Every good boy, that's a B. So it really should be C major 7, right? Well, we're not playing that chord. And sometimes, and if you ever watch Rick Beato, he'll often kind of preach this gospel where he says some of the best melodies, the melody is singing a note that isn't represented in the chord. Now, being this is Chords and Coffee, if you want to play, you know, I'll be, and actually outline that C major 7, have that B in your chord, no problem. But it's actually kind of nice from an accompaniment standpoint to not have the note that the singer is singing or the lead instrument is playing, because it just creates a little bit of tension, palatable tension, but tension nonetheless. So anyway, I thought that's pretty cool. But wait, there's more. When you get to this next chord, and this C6, by the way, I would do just the C6 I showed you just a second ago. In the beginning, when I was playing, I actually just played just a C power chord because I was playing the melody. I'll be, and all that would be index finger on the 3rd fret of the A. You could use your pinky or your ring to cover the D string and the G string of the 5th fret. And really, I just want to play this B note here on the 4th fret of the G. I'll be home. Now, what's interesting is that on the word home, that note, that D, we're playing an E flat diminished 7, which is kind of like a D7 with E flat in the bass, if I was just thinking about it. Well, what do I mean? Well, check this out. So let's make a D7 chord like we did just a second ago, where I'm going to have my index finger on the 5th fret from A to high E, and then I'm going to have my ring finger on the 7th fret of the D, and pinky is going to be on the 7th fret of the B. Now, instead of making that human capo bar on the 5th fret, I'm just going to put my index finger on the 5th fret of the G. Now, just hold right there. Do you see? That's still the better part of the D7. You've got the A, you've got the C, and you've got the F sharp, right? Well, to make this E flat diminished 7, we're just going to take that shape and we're going to put now our middle finger on the E flat of the 6th fret of the A string. So you've got I'll be home for Christmas. And that home, that was hard to figure out. My old buddy Kyle texted me. He's like, man, shouldn't it be I'll be home? That actually sounds right, but it doesn't, because we need that rub. We need that tension, which is interesting. I often have wondered, every year Christmas songs come around and they're complicated, they're complex, they're dense in terms of their harmony, but they're also profoundly nostalgic. Well, Nate, they're only nostalgic because we hear it every year. Well, yeah, but there's a lot of Christmas songs that get written that don't get put on repeat. Not everybody's Mariah Carey, right? Too soon? Probably. Okay. That's not even my favorite stuff. I mean, my favorite stuff has this tension, this rub, which is part of nostalgia, right? It's that bittersweet kind of emotion. You know, you're taking the good and the bad, and you're loving all of it, right? And you're grateful for all of it. Little aside there from your Uncle Nate, but isn't that beautiful? That little moment right there. So after that, E flat diminished 7, we're going to go to a D minor. I need to refer to my chart here before I get too far off, because when we go to this D minor, and in fact, there's a couple different ways we can approach this. You can do the D minor we did a second ago, but here, there, and everywhere in this chart where there's a D minor, this is also a good one to use. This is going to be middle finger on the A string of the 5th fret. Index is going to be on the 3rd fret of the D. Ring is going to be on the 5th fret of the G. And then pinky is going to be on the B string of the 6th fret. So I'll be home for Christmas. And then G7. Now, sometimes I want to do this good old-fashioned G7 like I showed you a second ago, but other times, and maybe you could even put your pinky on it here, so that index finger across the 3rd fret from E to E, ring finger on the 5th fret of the A, middle finger on the 4th fret of the G, then pinky on the 6th fret of the B. But you can also do this little maneuver here where you go, which we've talked about before, I think, in the 6th chord lesson, but definitely it's come up as far as different blues applications too. Index finger, 3rd fret of the low E, and then I'm going to make this little triad right here, and all this is an E minor being slid down to a D minor, right? And what we got here is we've got our ring finger on the 5th fret of the D string. Middle finger is going to be on the 4th fret of the G, and then pinky is going to be on the 5th fret of the B. And we're just going to slide that whole thing down a whole step to 3 with the ring, 2nd fret with the middle, and then pinky on the 3rd fret. And what that ends up yielding is a G6 to a G9, all sort of under the parentheses of G7, because it's just doing the same thing. It's pointing us back to C, but instead of going to C, we go to E minor 7 flat 5. How's that work? It's a substitution for C dominant 7. If you don't understand that, check out the tension and release episode that we did. But E minor 7 flat 5, it's going to be on your 7th fret of the A, index finger, and then your ring finger is going to be on the 8th fret of the D, and then your middle finger is going to be on the 7th fret of the G. Pinky is going to be on the 8th fret of the B. E minor 7, you can count on me. Anytime I see a dominant 7 chord with a flat 9, and it comes up a lot, especially in like gospel music, right? I don't mean necessarily like 4-chord praise and worship, but like, you know, denser harmony gospel music. This comes up all the time, and almost always, without exception, they want this thing, this little moment, and you might even add that if you want to. What have I got going on here? It's going to be index finger on the 5th fret of the low E. I'm going to have my middle finger on the 5th fret of the D. My ring finger is going to be on the 6th fret of the G. Now, pinky, for just a moment, is going to be on the 6th fret of the high E. There's your flat 9. And then I'm going to resolve that. I'm going to move my middle finger and put the middle finger on the high E of the 5th fret. And then make that D minor 7 chord underneath it. And that G7. Now back to this good old D minor 7 we just did a second ago. And then this beautiful moment. I'm going to make sure I get this right and don't screw this up. So we've got that. And then, G7. And then please have snow. And then this is really cool because you got please have snow and mistletoe. I bet I can do that better. Please have F minor 9, B flat 9, C major 7, C major B, A minor 7. So what we got? Good old-fashioned D minor 7 and into this F minor 9. This is going to be ring finger on the 8th fret of the A, middle finger on the 6th fret of the D, index finger on the 5th fret of the G, and then pinky is going to be on the 8th fret of the B. F minor 9, so pretty. We'll do it a different way here in a second, and then down to this B flat 9. Please have snow and as far as the timing of that, you sing it how you want to, but I like the way that sounds. B flat 9 is going to be like this, very similar to this G7. In fact, the same grip, just slid up. You're going to have your ring finger on the 6th fret of the low E. You're going to have your middle finger on the 6th fret of the D. Your index finger is going to be on the 5th fret of the G, and then pinky is going to be on the 6th fret of the B. Now watch this. Mistletoe. And so we got this little moment here, right? Good old-fashioned C major 7, like we just discussed at the top of it too. Now this is a little interesting. What is C major 7? Well, it's an E minor over C, right? For this C major 7 over B, could I do this? I could. Do I want to? Not really, because what I want to do is I want to do this melody like that. So I'm going to go. So that the second chord, I'm basically just going to build an E minor here with my middle finger on the 8th fret of the B, pinky on the 9th fret of the G, and then, let's see, yes, and then I'm going to have my, pinky on the 9th fret of the G, and then ring finger on the D string of the 9th fret. I'll get it out. There it is. And then your index finger is going to be on the 7th fret of the low E, hitting that B note. Mistletoe, dun, dun. And then on toe, that A minor 7, you're going to have your index finger on the 5th fret of the D, the G, the B, and then pinky on the 8th fret of the high E with the A string ringing open. Love it. And then this monster. Now I debated on this chord because this chord, it might be too much. It might be. I like it. It kind of reminds me a little bit, just a little bit, kind of a cousin to the Hard Day's Night kind of Beatle thing, right? But it's up higher up on the neck, and I just thought, it's kind of a neat spot to do that. So what are we doing? Well, we're going to have, let's build it this way. Let's put our middle finger on the 10th fret of the low E, okay? We're going to put our ring finger on the 10th fret of the D, and we're going to have our index finger on the B of the 8th fret, but with the, that's a G note is what that is. But I'm going to also have that G string ringing just to really emphasize that. And then I'm going to have my pinky on the 10th fret of the high E. Some presents under. Now this is D7. And again, if I'm looking at this melody, I've got B, B, right? I know I just did B, A, and I might do that again if I'm just playing through it just out of force of habit. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to think of this D7 as kind of like an A minor over D. Functionally, it's the same thing. And so I've got my index finger here on the 5th fret of the G, the 5th fret of the B, and then the 5th fret of the high E, and I'm covering up that B with my pinky on the 7th fret of the E, so I can pull it off if I want to. And then this D minor 7 over G. This is kind of nice. Think of this as making a D minor 7 just with 3 notes, and then I'm just adding the G to the bass. So this would be middle finger on the 5th fret of the A, skipping the D, and then ring finger on the 5th fret of the G, and then pinky on the 6th fret of the B, and then index is going to come down on there on the 3rd fret of that low E. And then to a G7, or you might do something like that. Right. And so, where are we at? We're back to Christmas Eve, just like the beginning, will find me where the love lies. I realize my singing is all over the place. Love me anyway. And then F6, I'll be home. Isn't that nice? So let's go F6. Just like we did this G6 before, this is going to be index on the 1st fret of the low E. And then you're going to have your ring finger on the 3rd fret of the D, middle finger, 2nd fret of the G, pinky, 3rd fret of the B. And then down to this B flat 9. And whenever I do this shape like this, especially down here, it's very tempting for my pinky to want up here and make it a 13 because it feels good to me. I like it. What is that? Well, index finger, 1st fret of the A string. And then if you end up getting that D in there on that particular chord, and that works, great. But sometimes because of how this grip is situated, I'll end up muting it. not the end of the world, because this happens so quick, and this is really a substitution, again, for that minor 4. But I've got my index finger doing nothing at this point. Middle finger is on the first fret of the A, and then ring finger is covering up the G, the B, and the high E, all on the first fret. Maybe that pinky hits the third. And then this little moment here, Christmas. Whoops, da, 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 da. I think that's how that goes. So C major 7. Think of this as an E minor over C, where I've got my index finger on the 8th fret of the low E, and then I've got my ring finger on the 9th fret of the D, and then pinky's on the 9th fret of the G, and then middle finger is on the 8th fret of the B. Then check this out. Whoops. Dun, yeah. That's crazy, right? So this, they're calling for a B or a B9 sharp 5. So what is that? Well, B9, it's a dominant 7 chord that has the 2nd of the 9th in it. And so if I've got a B here on the low E, which I want to hear that chromatic movement, right? So I'm going to have my middle finger on the 7th fret of the low E, and then I'll have my ring finger on the 7th fret of the D. There's my B and my A, and then my 9th is right here on the 6th fret of the G. That's at C sharp, and now I need a sharp 5, so instead of an F sharp, I'm scooting that pinky up here to the 8th fret of the B string. And so you've got for Christmas, something like that. I'm not sure how to sing over that, but the chords sound pretty. And that B flat 9, that is no different than the B flat 9 that we did moments ago. And instead of going to A7 what the chart calls for, I would just go back to this A9. Just keep it all right there and consistent. Lovely. And so that's going to be on the 5th fret of the low E with the middle finger. Ring finger is going to be on the 5th fret of the D. Index is going to be on the 4th fret of the G. And then pinky on the 5th fret of the B. And if only... Back to D9. Why not? It says D7, but D9 right there. Come on, give me a break. That's beautiful. And then this D minor 7 again that we did just moments ago. And then G7 flat 9. Again, it's the exact same grip, and it's wanting this... that resolution to that C6. So you got your index finger on the 3rd fret of the low E, middle finger on the 3rd fret of the D, ring finger 4th fret of the G, and then pinky is on the 4th fret of the high E, resolving back to that G on the C6. Now when you finally get to the end of this tune, there'll be this moment, Christmas, if only in my, or if only in my dreams. Something like that, right? To turn it back around, to get to that D7 again. How would I do that? I'd probably, after that D7, if only in my, go to the E7 flat 9 to the A9. What is that? That's going to be middle finger or ring finger on the 7th fret of the A, index finger on the 6th fret of the D, pinky is going to be on the 7th fret of the G, and then your middle finger is going to be on the 6th fret of the B, and then resolve to that A9 that we did just a second ago, and then back to D7, dun, dun, some kind of G7, and then for an ending, instead of going just to C, which is fine, you could do kind of an abbreviated version of the beginning where you have and end on that C6-9, right? And that's just the F major 7, E minor 7, D minor 7, just like the beginning, D flat 9, C6-9, middle finger on the 3rd fret of the A string, index laying on the 2nd of the D and the G, and then ring finger on the B string, 3rd fret, pinky, 3rd fret, high E. That's a lot of chords, but that's a lot of return on investment because Christmas comes every time of this time of year, right? hey, if you like this sort of thing, or if you're like, man, I got questions, or requests, or, and it could be, hey, Nate, maybe don't sing again. I don't know, whatever you like. Chords and Coffee is for you. It's for us. It's how we connect. It's how I encourage you, and I hope this encourages you. I hope you're having a wonderful Christmas so far, and I hope every year, if you pull this video up or these other videos up, and they help you get a little bit further down the road with these tunes. That's my goal. Friends, we're living life the best we can with a guitar in our hand and sometimes a cup of coffee. We'll see you next week for another Chords and Coffee, 9 a.m. Central Time.